Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Rhea. I am your host, and today I am pleased to welcome Alasdair Milroy. He is the CFO of Break the Mould Accounting. How are you?
I'm really well, Rhea. It's really good, and thank you for having me on your show.
Well, of course. I mean, you are a chartered accountant, and in yachting, one of the things that makes yachting go round, of course, is money. You have to have a lot of it in order to have a yacht or in order to charter a yacht. There is an awful lot of paperwork that goes into this sort of thing, and a lot of the times it comes down to the captain to do. Now, this is a full-time job. A yacht operates essentially as a business. And sometimes not even a small business, depending on how large the yacht is. It's a pretty medium to large size business when you look into it. Tell us why people would need someone like you. What can you do for them?
I think the real key to it is the experience in accounting has given me the opportunity to look at lots of different infrastructure and accounting software. And I think what I can really do is save a lot of time for captains in their administration and give them better real-time data, financial data for both them and the owners on the operation of the yacht.
Well, and it becomes really confusing too, because depending on where the yacht has its flag and depending on where the crew are hired from, where the yacht is located currently, there's so many factors that go into it, and it's really quite confusing for just the average layperson to try and figure out. A job as a captain, it's not his job to figure out tax laws in this country, tax laws in this country, and how to apply different things that need to be applied. I mean, even for myself, doing my own books, I'm lost most of the time.
Yeah, so my background has been in working on the corporate side of yachting with the ownership structures and things. And what I saw over the last 5 or 6 years in that role was there was a lot of dislocation in the financial process from what the captain was providing on board, which is really or the purse of the cash accounting, what's come in and what's spent from if there was a crew employment company involved, their accounts. Then you have a yacht manager. You might have, if it's chartering, you'll have different fiscal agents. And there's a lot of duplication in terms of the admin or going back to those source documents and reprocessing them for the various different parties, including the owning company itself. And modern cloud accounting solutions have really made this much easier for onshore businesses to deal with and given them more real-time data and made their administration much more efficient. And with my experience in the private client world and the accounting side, that's where I think I can really offer some value to captains in terms of really saving them time and making sure what is done on board is correct in terms of VAT, if that's required, and the administration and those source documents are being recorded correctly, and at the same time you've got the information at your fingertips to make decisions. There's been a lot of changes in regulations over the last 5 years in yachting, and that's got much more complicated. And I think post-COVID we'll see governments and revenue departments looking much more closely at VAT. It's already gone through quite a lot of changes, and I think there is a need to be really on top of that and have that information at your fingertips.
How much time do you think that having someone like you working with a yacht would save a captain, for example?
It obviously depends on the volume of transactions on the yacht, but I think it'll be hours a week. I was talking to a first mate the last week who was saying on a 70-meter, she used to spend 2 or 3 days a month working on the financials, which was a lot of time and probably not time well spent for someone who's not got an accounting and bookkeeping background. I think with using some of the solutions that are available now onshore, it would save 5 to 10 hours a month at least.
What would the
Could be more.
process be then? Right from the get-go, would just their receipts, period, just everything that comes across as paper receipts, all purchases, all salary, everything, it would just go directly to you, just bypass the captain, bypass the person that is responsible, it would just go directly to you, and you would make sense of that?
There's some software tools out there that are very good at extracting data from invoices. Whether that be you've received a PDF, you can email it to an inbox, and the software will then process and extract that information and take that into or get it ready and prepare it for your main accounting software. It also allows for bank statements to be downloaded and brought in as CSV files, and you can take photographs of receipts on your phone, even if you don't have internet, which I know can be a problem on yachts. It will say it's erroring, but as soon as you get that connection back, it'll sync those documents in. So there's a lot of tools that around the accounting, the main accounting software that plug in very easily in this day and age and just automate a lot of that processing and transaction. To someone who does a lot of work with purses recently, and she was saying that family offices are still sending PDFs, and they were keying the PDFs into the yacht system, which is just not good use of anyone's time. So it's really looking at those processes, and my background has been, I've got quite a broad background in business. I've been in the private client market for the last 14 years. Prior to that, I've done some corporate banking work. So I've got that financial and accounting experience to be able to look at the processes and actually look at how we can make those more efficient, to give the information that's needed to the people who need it, and to reduce that admin burden on the onboard team.
Well, and the nice thing too is that it will more than likely save you money at the end, because you don't actually do the taxes themselves. In whichever country that you are doing your taxes, you're going to have an accountant in that country, for example, France or Spain. But it will save them time, and it will save the yacht money, because it will already be put together where that tax lawyer can say, well, here's everything. It's just a matter of submitting it to the state or the country.
Yeah, most charter yachts will have a fiscal agent, certainly if they're operating commercially, who prepares the VAT returns for each charter, and looks at that. And again, this type of system allows them to log into that same information, not only to be able to prepare the tax returns when they come to do the VAT returns at the end of charter, but actually they can see things as and when they happen. And there's certainly some feedback I've had in talking to them is that if there is an issue with an invoice, if it doesn't have the right VAT number on, or the right place of supply or delivery, and there's information missing, often they don't see that till 3 or 4 weeks down the line. If they've got access to that data as it happens, it's much easier for myself and working with them to pick those, to see those, identify those, and correct them much earlier in the process, and save the owner money.
Is there quite a bit of difference between, say, for example, doing books for yacht charter or for a yacht that is essentially owner?
Yeah, clearly, most commercial yachts will be VAT registered in the countries that they're chartering in, whether that be Spain. So yeah, I think there is, in a nutshell, there's a lot of difference in terms of there's differences in terms of the safety regulations, which you could argue there isn't, but a commercial yacht has to be manned differently and probably has a bit more formality around the way it's operated. It's normally got a VAT registration somewhere in Europe, often Malta. So it has VAT returns to do both there and in the countries it's chartering. So yeah, I'd say there's a greater degree of emphasis on the accounting records, just because there's more tax authorities looking at those. And
what countries are the ones? Sorry.
it's the commercial yachts are set up and they have their VAT registration because they've been set up as a business, and that's the reason why there's the VAT is allowed to be not paid on the hull, or it's paid and reclaimed on the actual vessel itself. So it's really important to preserve the legitimacy of that structure and to ensure you are running it as any VAT registered business elsewhere in Europe. And again, I think with COVID and revenue authorities looking to claim back some of the money they've had to pay out, that after COVID is only going to become more of a focus.
What are the countries that most yachts are flagged as? I mean, there are sort of certain tax havens that most of these yachts are flagged in.
I'm based in Guernsey. We very much don't or try to steer away from the tax haven label these days. It's really about tax neutrality. I think in terms of the flag states that you see regularly for non-EU, Cayman is very popular. I think that's often the flag state's very responsive. It's got quite flexible around the crewing and safe manning requirements on board, and it's well known that people are familiar with it. Captains are familiar with it. So that's certainly for non-EU owners one of the more regular one. Obviously, you have Jersey, BVI, Marshall Islands as well. There's other flag states. For EU owners, it's become less and less choice. I think UK flag remains popular. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Brexit and whether that becomes an alternative to Cayman to have a London flag and be outside of the EU. And Malta's obviously grown a lot in popularity for yachts operating in the EU who are owned by EU beneficial owners.
Did I not see a story not long ago, though, that if a yacht is out of British waters or UK waters for 3 months, there's a certain amount of money they have to pay again to bring it back into UK waters?
There's a returns goods relief, which has been getting a lot of press at the moment. And in fact, over the weekend, the UK government had said that any yacht that had been outside of Europe for 3 years from the exit dates of the 31st of December 2020 will be subject to returns goods relief if it doesn't return to the UK in 3 years, which essentially, if you don't take it back to the UK within the next 3-year period, VAT will become repayable in the UK when it's reimported. There was an announcement I saw this morning actually saying that work with British Marine and the RYA HMRC has extended that by a year. But yes, it's going to, for UK flagged vessels with UK owners, it's something they're going to have to think about in terms of whether they're going to want to bring them back and when they do bring them back, if they're in free circulation. Yeah.
I don't understand. I mean, yes, I understand the governments are grasping for money, but if you've already paid that tax, it just baffles my mind that they're going to say, well, you've been gone for this long, we're going to charge you just the exact same tax you've already paid before. We're going to charge it to you again. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't,
The VAT rules in Europe are very complicated, and it's not about just paying the VAT once. A yacht, we see the term VAT paid a lot in the press, and when people are selling boats and buying boats, it often says VAT paid. What that really means is it's in free circulation within the EU, and there's a lot of things that can change that. If you see yachts go in for inward goods relief, which is where they go into a shipyard in the UK, there's certain relief around that work being VAT free for non-EU vessels, and then they can leave again. But you have to be anything that is taking the yacht out of the EU or doing work on the yacht, particularly if it's major refit work, can impact the VAT status. And again, having that information, knowing what's going on in the yacht, working with it, and having that at your fingertips makes it much easier to make sure something doesn't happen that's going to be very costly for an owner before it does. And you do see yachts going in for work, and it will have it might be a free circulation. It's had VAT paid, but it's got a Cayman or a BVI flag. The captain takes it in to do some work in the yard. The yard looks at the flag and assumes that it's under TA, processes as that is under the relief that allows the work to be done non-VAT, and that actually impacts when it comes out, it impacts the yacht's free circulation status. In effect, it would need to come back into the EU and pay VAT again wherever it's imported. So there are some fairly significant risks around getting this thing wrong. And I'd urge any captain, particularly this time of the year, if you're going into yards or just check. If you're going to do major work, check with a professional and get advice around what you're doing to make sure that you don't create a VAT liability.
Well, and if you are working with a yacht, for example, or the yacht management company, you are able to provide this professional advice because, why would a captain need to know that? Yes, they do, obviously, but why should they have to know that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm wanting to offer with Breaking the Mould Accounting is working with and being very involved, knowing what's going on day to day, and by seeing the real-time financials and seeing what's happening operationally on the yacht, you can keep on top of potential issues. Another thing, you often see artwork being delivered to yachts, and that can have, depending on where that is, you might be importing that artwork into a different country, and that might have tax consequences for that. So there are lots of, we're dealing with a very complicated boat that moves around different places with different rules, and it's something I wouldn't expect any captain to be able to keep on top of by themselves. It's also why I've joined with Total Super Yacht to look at where I'm providing accounting and financial administration to provide to use their software to provide the mini ISM and safety management. They have that software has a lot of the flag, the yacht certificates, and the crew certificates on board, as well as the crew pay information. So as an accountant, I can use that to extract the payroll information and help with the payroll for the crew, and process that as part of the accounting and finance. But it also gives me a much better view of what is happening on the yacht day to day and what issues are coming up. And I think that way, it's always a lot better to be able to work with a business or a yacht in this case and know what's going on and see that information and not just be looking purely at the numbers.
When it comes to crew, now, when you hire crew, do you pay them according to where they're from? Or, how does that work? Because you've got guaranteed you're going to have crew that are from either the UK, the EU, you've got crew that are from New Zealand, South Africa, Australia. How do you pay these people? Are they all registered in one place? Or are they registered, each one of them individually in their own country?
And it varies very much from yacht to yacht. I think some yachts, a lot of yacht managers now will have a white labeled crew employment company. Often that's based in Guernsey, where I am. There's both in the commercial shipping and in super yachts, there's a lot of crew who are employed in Guernsey because it has very good social security agreements with the EU. But being outside of the EU in the past, certainly it's allowed crew members to be paid gross and deal with their own taxes and social security in their home residence. There's been some changes in the EU regulations, but we've seen that mostly in France in the last couple of years, where they've really enforced the social security situation. That's certainly seen Malta flag vessels employing their crew in Malta or in Malta registered companies and social security being paid there. For UK flag vessels, if crew members have a UK national insurance number, they can make their national insurance contributions there, which covers any risk of liability for hidden employment in countries like France, because you're paying somewhere else. And then we've seen a rise in the social security, the use of private insurance and private pension schemes to provide that social security for crew. So yeah, I think it varies. Some I think in the Middle Eastern owners will often probably employ the crew themselves. If you've got Filipino crew, you're obliged to engage an agent in the Philippines who looks after all the taxes and employment of those Filipino crew. For European and for crew, it's certainly normally through a company, an employment company, or the yacht managers will arrange that. But that's something we can also look after. It's a complicated area, and there's a lot of crossover of the work involved in crew employment with also the work involved with your safety management, your international safety management, in terms of making sure the vessel's safe manned, having the right certificates, having crew doing the training when they need to, etc., and making sure their contracts are MLC compliant.
Do you know, I am a firm believer in do what you do best and hire someone to do the rest. And in your case, I definitely would suggest that people hire, I don't know how the captains even maneuver half of this, because, it's one thing, they've got, a vessel full of lives that they are responsible for, and a vessel itself to captain, to take where it needs to go, to make sure that they know weather patterns and, everything that goes on a ship on a day-to-day basis. And then on top of that, to navigate the financial aspects, it baffles me. It completely baffles me. You would have to have a degree of some sort in order to, traverse the waters, as it were.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree, and it's one of the things that really struck me coming into the yachting industry, that it's certainly different than other industries in terms of there's a lot of people involved with doing the financial administration who don't have the financial, who don't have that training. They're not qualified accountants. They haven't done bookkeeping. And I think there is a value in that, and I think it really is overlooked. And talking to people in the industry, people are now recognizing that. I think there is a need to have people who are trained. It is getting much more complicated than it was even 5 or 6 years ago when I first joined it. And also having that background of private client work and understanding what happens with family offices and trusts, and I think is helpful. I draw the analogy, Rhea, if you're, in most other investments that family offices will hold, they're often the person running those investments will engage a professional to look at the risks in that portfolio of shares or bonds or whatever that asset may be, look at the risk and look at the return and say, have we got this right? Is the investment manager doing what he should do? And you don't see that in yachting. So there is no measure of, if you have a yacht manager in place or of someone looking and saying, what are the risks? Are we doing the safety management right? Are we protecting our captain from those risks? Because actually he's, if something does go wrong on board, he's often the first person who's held responsible. I think for corporate directors, they're more and more also responsible if a yacht's not maintained. So there's some yacht risks that can be managed, and you just need to demonstrate and have that process in place. I think there's also benefits for an owner in, if you've got good financial records, if you can show the yacht's been maintained, if you can show that you've got a well-trained crew and that you've had the right processes in place, you're going to preserve the value of your vessel when you come to want to move up or exchange it in the future.
Well, realistically, none of these owners actually got rich by being stupid about money. Let's face it.
No.
They've been very, very smart when it comes to money. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, if they can see the benefits in something like what you do and what you're offering and see how much money it saves them, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think Also, family office staff. I often, you'll have an accountant in the family office, and the yacht's one of properties, investments, family businesses that he's looking after. But it's very specialist, and someone who's sitting in a family office in London probably doesn't have that in-depth knowledge of what is going on in a yacht, how does it need to operate, what support does the captain know. So I think it often gets as long as they seem to think, as long as the captain seems to be happy, and as long as they're getting some information, they don't worry about it. But it's a specialist asset. It's very different than any other. I think often people view it as, well, it's a toy, and talk about the toys, and maybe that gives a different perspective in terms of the way that's managed compared to real estate or other investments. But it's in a very hostile environment. You've got crew on board. It's really important to get this right, and I think it's important for crew to be allowed to focus on the safety, on their crew, and on providing that guest experience, and taking some of that financial administration burden away.
Well, I'll make sure to put all of the information on how people can get a hold of you underneath this interview when it airs. You have given us some really good points today, and hopefully your phone is going to be ringing off the hook, and we'll have a lot of people that have decided to take that extra burden off the captain, let the captain get back to doing what he needs to do, and send their books and all of that stuff to you where you can take care of it properly.
Maria, it's been a pleasure to be on. I would like to say on that, I'm very happy to take calls, to talk people through. I also, is part of this is actually being able to educate and help and provide that support, so it's not full crew, and really take that burden off their shoulders. Also, a lot of corporate professionals charge by the hour. More and more we're seeing fixed fees, and I've decided to go completely down that route to have a fixed fee each month, not time charge, no surprises, which I find often captains and owners find it much more difficult to run when you've got a budget and then you keep getting extra costs coming through. So it's about making that as smooth as possible.
No surprises.
No surprises.
Once again, you've been listening to Alasdair Milroy. He is the CFO of Breaking the Mould Accounting, a chartered accountant here to help you with all your accounting needs on board and off. You've been watching another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host. Tune in again for another episode.